What's up, Fortnite fam? Best Taco here, and today I've teamed up with Gonna Need Milk in order to do a review session of the most recent round of the Milk Cup Academy scrims. Whether you're a newcomer to the Milk Cup Academy or a very experienced scrimmer, hopefully by the end of this video you'll have picked up enough tips and tricks to help elevate your Fortnite gameplay. So let's get into it. I wanted to start off today's review session by talking about what went down in the very first scrim lobby of the Milk Cup Academy. So, picking up with Italy, you can see she's a solo, she's lost Mia, but what I really have to commend her for in this initial rotation, she knows that she still has a handful of charges in this misform, right? So obviously you're going to use that for the invulnerability, but she's not being greedy with her positioning. She's trying to commit to this section of low ground that's just a little bit away from the primary congestion that's really started to pool more towards the top of the crest of this hill. But where Italy is currently located, all she really has to monitor is the other players surrounding her. And she does a great job at claiming space in this low ground frontside position. She's got a player that's trying to challenge her for that frontside posturing, but Italy doing a great job fending back, playing for these right side peaks. Granted, it's the left one that ends up working out for her, but by claiming that initial elimination, she's got a little bit of siphon materials to work with, but I was just more impressed by the way that as soon as she recognizes she's starting to experience a little bit of lobby focus, she pulls back. She knows that she can't afford to stick towards that front side position, so she starts playing a little bit closer towards that backside of zone, but she's also making sure that she keeps the other players on this ultimate low ground at arm's reach. She's trying to make sure that nobody can rotate towards her, nobody can try and even begin to encroach on her current position. And the moment that these other players start getting lobby focus, well, guess what? Italy, heads up moment, she's going to start sending shots their way too. Because again, her only directive right now is to just keep this position as freed up from everyone else as possible. And there's always going to be these players that are kind of struggling whenever you're playing through the ultimate low ground and you're having to deal with some of these elevation shifts. But that's why Italy, having this mobility because of the misform, she is able to still commit to these frontside low positions. She starts to get lobby focus a little bit, so she just retreats to that ultimate low ground. And it's so chaotic when you're playing through the water zones in first moving because so many players are just trying to scramble away from high ground focus. And I think that that's something that Italy takes great advantage of. So she's playing through backside of zone and she is just waiting for that opportunity to throw shots to clear out paths when players are distracted. Because again, things are really hard to keep track of when you are actually the one that's in the water on ultimate low for this type of zone by the bridge here at Shining Span. But Italy, so far, so good. She's managed to continuously string together a series of eliminations. This most recent one, though, is going to play the biggest part in her success factor for this lobby. She's already clutched up a handful of placements from her initial position playing as a solo, but here is where things start to get really crazy for Italy. She's found this little like tucked away section and everyone around her knows that there's going to always be those like handful of like solos kind of just scrambling around, scurrying around all these pre-existing builds. But what I really appreciate from Italy is that second moving zone, she knows it's pulling away from her. She knows that she can't possibly afford to just try and cut through the center of it because she doesn't have any materials. If she had more than one build, maybe she can cook something and continue to try and play towards that front side low and just bank on, you know, a scuff player dropping to ultimate low that she can then try and get a good shotgun blast on. But since that isn't the case here because she doesn't have any materials, by playing through the backside of zone, she does have those 3 white medkits. And so the medkits are huge here because you can just play for placement. You don't have to always be emphasizing on trying to just take over a good low ground position. Italy just knows, hey, placement might make the difference. This is where it's a little unfortunate for her because she does commit that misform charge. She was about to move into zone, but she realizes, hey, I still have 2 medkits. The zone is pulling back over her, which is the main reason why she retreated instead of actually going into zone. She knows that it's going to pull back over these builds that she's already safe in. So if she just tanks up a little bit of storm damage with the medkit, then she can continue to hold a more favorable position as opposed to trying to play it really scuffed in ulti low. But the moment that she sees this med miss grenade, she tries to make a heads up play. I respect the confidence to jump in to the action there. It does wind up working against her because, as you can already tell, the storm sickness, it's the worst possible sound you could hear when you're trying to make these solo clutch situations happen. But I still have to give a huge shout out to Italy for this heads up play, because working through the moving zones as a solo in a whole sea of duos, having everything be pulled over a water territory at that, it's not an easy position to work through. But for Italy, I think that it was just really smart positioning as a solo. You know, you don't want to draw on the lobby focus. You don't want to get too greedy. And I think that she just did everything right here. She played the medkits when she needed. She could just look for a backside zone position and waiting for the pullbacks. You're not always going to get as lucky as Italy was in that moment necessarily, but I think it's just really important to remember that you want to use everything at your disposal before you resort to that, you know, Hail Mary effort. And I think for Italy here, she did everything she possibly could. There's just only so much that can be done once Storm Sickness gets applied, but still a really great job here throughout lobby number 1. So after getting an idea of how to play moving zones as a solo with Italy, next up, we're going to get an opportunity to see exactly how you challenge for height as a duo in these endgame environments. And starting things off by looking into what Abby and Les are choosing to do. So they've already claimed secondary height, and Abby just doing a great job tarping forward, tunneling through, making sure that they can have as much space as possible. But the moment that Abby looks up, she can spot that there's already a little bit of pressure being applied to the team on height. So naturally, they're going to be distracted by aiming to send their return fire, you know, obviously to the teams that are trying to pressure them. But what they don't realize is that this secondary height duo directly underneath them, and that's where it becomes such a big heads up moment from Abby, because she recognizes, okay, they're not looking at me. She goes for a big shot here, doesn't manage to connect, but she still sends the team into a bit of a panic. And this is where things get really promising, because now, since that other duo, even if they didn't take damage necessarily, they probably didn't have material to actually stay committed to the high ground. And Abby and Les, they just kind of called the bluff here. I think they did a great job, because now that they forced that team off fight, there's nobody up here. There's nobody even looking at them. And so Abby, wasting absolutely no time, just does the same thing that she did from that secondary height position. She begins tarping out, tunneling forward, making sure that they are continuously spamming sprays at these teams on the secondary height, on mid ground, trying to play through these front side, mid and low ground positions. And Abby, Les, this is exactly what you want to do. You've already got height control, so to maintain it, you're just looking at two separate angles. Abby's continuing to prioritize, largely moving through front side of height. All the while, Les, completely separate direction. I love that they're splitting their line of sight, because everything that Les is trying to do here, she's just trying to pick up refreshes. She's just trying to pick up, you know, all the goodies for Abby to then take advantage of. And all those additional hard mats are just going to make it even easier for Abby and Les to continue maintaining this elevated height position. And from this point forward, when you have such a commanding grasp over height, it is literally just down to shooting your weapon as much as possible. You just don't want to allow any teams to have even the slightest opportunity to look at you on the high ground. And that's exactly what Abby and Les are doing. These teams, they're already caught up in so much congestion and mess in the low ground. They're having to fight through each other, but the only thing in front of Abby and Les right now is just, what, a couple of tree or two? And those additional mats, not like they really needed them, but Abby, she has so much material in comparison to everybody else left in this lobby now. And it's really just the fact that height has been fully uncontested since they made their move from secondary height in second moving to take over. And that, to me, it just showcases this is a very experienced duo that understands how to not only challenge for height, but also maintaining their positioning for it. And now, playing through these final moments only a couple duos standing in their way between themselves and a victory royale spanning across their screen. And so that's why it's important the way that Abby and Les actually chose to challenge together. But this is where I want to take a moment to pause, right? Because if you take a second to actually look at what Abby is working with in her loadout, she's got a full chug jug, 2 med miss grenades, 7 charges left in her miss form. And despite all of that, with Les getting knocked here at the end, Abby still chooses, rather than playing for the heal off, which I can assure you this kind of loadout is likely to bring big success. So if you are a less experienced player, if you want to, like, you know, really feel yourself in the moment or think that you've got the confidence to break through, and that's why I think I got to give huge shout outs to Abby here, is that this is a confidence play. Because she could just look to play exclusively for heal off to try and secure this victory royale. Nah, instead she's like, I'm gonna finish the conversation that Les had started here. I'm just gonna go for winning this 1v1 outright. And this is gutsy, but you know, no guts, no glory, and it works out for sure in Abby's case. But I think it is important to still give the light shout out here that if you have a loadout that's geared entirely towards ultimately winning a heal off, I think it's usually best to play it safe and opt for that method. But if you have a lot of confidence, if you trust in your natural ability to frag out in an endgame, and you think that you can win your one, you could always look to take on the victory royale in Abby style and just claim the game for yourself. Take it by force. So I love to see that out of Abby and Les. I think this duo did a great job in not only challenging high ground, but maintaining high ground, splitting their line of sights, just being absolute menaces from above, and refusing to budge against anybody, to the point where even if you have the heal off win, you still look to just get the elimination instead. So well played, Abby. So we've had a chance to look at how to play moving zones as a solo, how to take and control height as a duo in endgame, and now we're going to have a chance to look into what takes place and what kind of decisions need to be made when you are a duo that ends up losing height but still trying to play for the victory royale. And this is where Rogosaurus, Neutral Dactyl, Lena, and Panda Mint in the craziest 2v2 endgame really comes into effect. So let's get into it. Starting things off, you got Rogosaurus and Neutral Dactyl currently in a slightly elevated position, right? They're the closest consideration that I think we can have to high ground in this circumstance. You've got a solo sprinkled around. Sorry, Nicole, 4K vision on you for this circumstance. Nicole obviously just trying to keep herself a little bit covered here, but Lena, Panda Mint, Lena, as you can see, she's also on the high ground with Rogo and Neutral Dactyl. But the key thing to keep in mind here is what Panda is getting up to. So from right here, she's already been kind of trying to frag out. She's got 2 eliminations, but she knows that her duo is probably going to be in trouble because Lena on the high ground with a relatively healthy duo right next to her. And so this is where things kind of get a little bit crazy because Rogo, she wants height. She knows she's got to deal with Lena to get to it. Soft chop, but Rogo, Neutral, they immediately try and challenge Lena together. That forces Lena to immediately take her misform, and she's like, okay, word, I have to bail out. I've got to get back to my duo. Panda Mint can help me out. Also important to call out here, Nicole has been eliminated by Panda, so Panda's got Siphon on the low ground. Panda's also got those Siphon materials on the low ground, and she was able to pick up whatever little leftover healing resources Nicole might have had for her. So Lena coming to join her teammate, Rogo and Neutral, still on height for the most part. But because they forced Lena off, they know, hey, we can just claim height for ourselves. Or so they thought, because look at Panda. Heads up play here. She chops the team on height. The visibility was so obscured from that med miss grenade that Rogo dropped that she might not have realized. It looked like they were trying to get some connections, but she just didn't have the chance to actually prevent herself from being chopped. And with no mobility, no misform, no dashes, she didn't have a way to prevent taking the fall damage. So just like that, Neutral and Rogo have now just been fully compromised. They tried to make a play to overthrow Height. Instead, they wind up losing one member of their team. But Neutral, she did have the misform. She did opt to use it, so she doesn't take the same fall damage that her duo mate just took and got knocked by. But we still have to deal now with Pandamint and Lena. Here's where things get crazy. Neutral sees the med miss grenade, knows somebody's not healthy. Bam! First shot connection. Lena is down. Now you've got another player that's able to operate with a little bit of siphon, but she can't actually make it to the body loot just yet because she still has to deal with Pandamint, who was simultaneously popping this Chug Jug in ultimate low. And Pandamint, she does have 2 Chug Jugs. Granted, they're not full Chug Jugs, but it's still just a little bit to work with. Make sure to cover herself, make sure to block herself off. And this is just a trade now of getting eliminations, right? Panda's got that elim credit now from Rogosaurus, and it's smart. She's healing, but she's also making sure to apply a little bit of pressure towards Neutral to try and prevent Neutral from having that same opportunity to replenish any of her shields or white HP. And you have to remember, all this time, these players are in 10 tick because zone's closed. Like, that's it. Now they have to make a decision. How do we play from our resources? And Neutral, she did have a lot left in that Chug Jug, but they've both fully lost sight of each other, right? There's a couple of walls kind of separating these two players. Neutral knows, though, that she needs to get a good read on where the competition is at because Pandamint, same mentality here. They've just got to try and apply pressure, try and prevent the other from successfully healing off. But Pandamint spotting this Memmis grenade. So now she's got 2 Memmis grenades to play off of and what's left of her Chug Jug. That's going to throw Neutral into position now where she has to commit and make a decision. Do I challenge Pandamint and apply some pressure to try and stop that heal off early? Or do I pick up this Memmis grenade and with my misform, look to last it out? And this is smart from Neutral. She drops that Memmis. So we've got both players now with activated Memmis around them, just looking to trade shots. Whoever can win this Bloom battle might just take it home. Well, things look kind of promising initially for Pandamint, but some of those shots that connected from Neutral last second really threw her into a little bit of disarray. And that's where I think Neutral does a great job here because she does have a good amount of material, but Neutral had to reload. And because of that reload, she knew that Pandamint was going to take that opportunity to try and push her. Panda doesn't have any other options, right? She knows that the only other healing method would be on the body loot from her teammate that had been eliminated earlier on. But she knows that she's got to deal with Neutral standing on top of that loot already. So this is where I've really got to give a good awareness check towards Neutral and Rogo because Neutral just plays it safe. She could look to just try and land the blast, but she didn't get the tag, and so immediately she drops into the misform. And it's smart. She knew that she had just one opportunity. She didn't get that shot connection that she needed, so instead she plays for a full-on disengage, and that leaves Panda nowhere left to run because Panda couldn't close through. Obviously, you can't take damage when you're inside of that misform, but Pandamint did a great job. She did everything in her power to try and turn this back into her favor. Unfortunately, Neutral and Rogo, they just had one step ahead, and it really just boils down to Neutral being able to claim that positioning on top of the body loot from Lena. Forcing Pandamint out of that location was ultimately what gave her the last little bit of an edge to make sure that she could win this lobby out. And so game 3 for the Milk Cup Academy, well played to Rogosaurus and Neutral. A great heads up recovery after that little bit of a stumble from getting chopped on height. Just goes to show that it's not always down exclusively to high ground for winning a game. You can make some quick decisions even in ultimate low to still make things happen. So the last thing I wanted to cover in tonight's review session of the Milk Cup Academy scrims is how to handle an off-spawn contest. Kicking things off with Weezer, Wonka, and Eternity. This is par for the course kind of ordeal. They're trying to get their drop off. They're headed for this split by Lovely Lane and the bird to go. And Weezer knows we've got company. So what I really like about this, though, from Weezer and Eternity, is that they've both definitely taken notice. Okay, there's going to be a team slightly east, probably going to push the gas station, potentially. So what are we going to do? Well, Weezer, she's not looking to waste any time. A lot of times with players landing in some of these fringe positions on the map, they'll have the temptation to not actually look for that immediate 50-50 contest. Weezer and Eternity obviously had the better drop than the duo that's challenging them. And while that other duo is definitely more split and apart from them, Weezer knows she doesn't want to allow any sort of time to slip through that gives that other duo a chance to essentially steal the loot away from Weezer and her teammate Eternity. They know that even if they didn't challenge us immediately, we're going to take the fight to them instead. So she is just full sprinting, trying to get to this chest, trying to get whatever floor spawn she can, because she wants to immediately look for the very first elimination. Unfortunately, those shots off the mark can be a little bit difficult off that distance to try and fully connect. But Weezer, she still got plenty of confidence based off the fact that they won that drop. She knows this is a player that doesn't have a whole lot of builds or anything like that. And so even though Weezer doesn't have any material either, it doesn't matter. She just hard pushes. She's got Eternity backing her up on the high ground. So again, both of these players doing a great job at splitting up, but still staying in the same area. And now, just like that, what looked to be a possibly annoying situation for Weezer and her duo Eternity, they're not going to lose any loot from their split. They immediately pushed the other team that was challenging them in their split drop. And by getting those two eliminations start things off, they've already got a good amount of surge online. They've also just got the luxury of being able to prioritize focusing on their loot path. They're not going to have to worry about any sort of pop-up surprise distractions or anything like that, because I think it's always best when you are being contested at a drop and you know that you've won the drop from the battle bus outright. Just push that other team. Take them out of the lobby. You don't want anything coming back to haunt you. And I think that that's something that can definitely occur whenever players try to, take a more safe approach and just split the area. They're just like, hey, okay, I didn't win out on the drop. I'll just go take the loot from this area and then just try to play my game through that way. And yeah, nah, forget about all of that, okay? Weezer and Eternity, they were just looking to lock in and get the job done, okay? Ohio, only handle it once, and this is a perfect example of what you want to do for handling an off-spawn contest. Even though that other duo might not have been an immediate threat, it could have just been something that played spoiler to their game plan strategy later on. So why take that chance? You win the drop, you win the off-spawn. It's just a big confidence and momentum swing across the board. So really well played to Eternity and Weezer Wonka. Ultimately ends up netting them the ability to, like I said, just focus on their rotational paths after the fact. And yeah, in general, just I think it's always best to not extend these off-spawn fights, because it's just so easy for a third party to then come through, intervene, and just play janitorial crew against you and whatever other teams might be involved. So finish your off-spawn battles. Make it quick and snappy. Don't give other teams the opportunity to do so, because now look at all this space. Eternity and Weezer Wonka, they got nobody near them, okay? They can take all the time in the world to finish looting up Lovely Lane and then make their way over to the Bird to Go gas station later on for some of their hard materials and whatnot. They've just got to keep tabs on potentially even having the chance to third-party resistance base. So a lot of doorways opened up. In general, really well played to Weezer Wonka and Eternity and showcasing how to handle an off-spawn fight. Now look, I know this can be a lot of information to take in, but I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video covering just a handful of tips and tricks based off the most recent round of the Milk Cup Academy scrims. If you haven't already, make sure that you sign up for the next round of Milk Cup Academy scrims. And not only that, but make sure that you get involved. The last Milk Cup qualifier is just around the corner, and I want to see who makes it there to the LAN Milk Cup Academy. Let me see some of y'all step up, because Milk Cup qualifiers, Milk Cup LAN in San Diego. It's going to be an awesome ride. So thank y'all so much for joining me here today. Until next time, see y'all then.